So, namaste, good evening, good morning, everybody. And today we are going to start our, I think, 10th webinar, which we name as Masterclass. And let me introduce to our organization, CRFC, Climate Risk and Finance Council. So, CRFC is a non-profit organization based in United States, North Carolina, and having members from across the globe, India, US, Australia, to name a few. And last year we started as CRFR and finally landed as CRFC. And we are having around over 50 members in our group. And we regularly organize webinars. As I told you, we name as masterclass because it's not a one-sided conversation; it's a two-sided conversation, and our guest speakers answer every of the queries which are raised in the among the audience. So in past we have invited the industry leaders and academicians from from US, from Germany, from India, for sure. And we have also hosted some leading organization like Refinitiv Icon, and we are into the conversation with the GAP, you can say Protivity. These are the organization which are going to be our partners soon. And today, as I told you, today we are having our 10th masterclass, and we are hosting today Mr. Deepak Kumar, who is serving Union Bank of India as Assistant General Manager. And I would like to request Hargovind Sachdev sir, who is our Board of Directors member, and to introduce Mr. Deepak Kumar. Hargovind sir.
Thank you very much. Friends, Shri Deepak Kumar, as Kashyapji said, is presently employed as Assistant General Manager with Union Bank of India, Mumbai. He is a sustainability enthusiast, a writer par excellence, and a very eloquent speaker on the subject. He is pursuing doctorate in sustainability and climate risk. He is an experienced risk professional for over a decade, having expertise in ESG risk, climate risk, credit risk, operational risk, and assets and liability mismanagement risk. He is skilled at developing risk frameworks as well as policies and models. Mr. Deepak Kumar has a very good understanding of business processes, being a banker, carries sound knowledge of regulatory framework, which is very mandatory to exercise these concepts. And of course, he's gifted with knowledge of the statutory regulations that manage this sort of risks. So we welcome Shri Deepak Kumar on this forum. And now, Shri Deepak ji, the stage is with you. Kindly begin.
Hello everyone, I welcome you all to this webinar on Tcfd Recommendations. So first of all, I would like to thank Climate Risk and Finance Council for giving me this opportunity. So before starting on Tcfd or Taskforce on Climate Related Financial Disclosures recommendations, first of all, let me tell you that what is the difference between Tcfd recommendations and whatever sustainability related reportings or disclosures which were happening earlier, or for that matter, we know that as corporate social responsibility. So there has been CSR reports from companies. So what is the difference between TCFD and the traditional CSR which companies were doing? So in terms of traditional CSR, what companies were doing is that they were telling or disclosing to different stakeholders that what is going to be the impact of the company on environment, on the land use, on the water uses, and overall society. So this is what was the content of typical CSR report of a company, that how they are impacting land, environment, water, air, like this. But when it comes to TCFD recommendations, so there is a total shift here. Here they have to disclose that what is the impact of climate change on the company itself. So earlier companies were disclosing that how they are impacting the environment, now they have to disclose that how environment or how climate is impacting them. So this is the paradigm shift which has happened with TCFD recommendations. So in that light, they have to explain or they have to disclose to stakeholders like investors that how climate change is going to impact their products, their processes, their operations, their strategy, and how equipped they are, how resilient their firm is. So this is the basic difference between TCFD recommendations and the traditional CSR reports which were being published earlier or being published now also. So with that note, we will start this workshop. So let me tell you the agenda of this meeting first. So we are going to cover 6 topics here. So we will first start with the recap of climate change and financial stability before introducing you to TCFD. Then we will see that which are the key themes and topics of TCFD. Afterwards, we will see good practices against each of those TCFD's recommended disclosures. So there are 11 disclosures. So we will see the good practices along with some examples. And then we will see practical next steps which any organization has to take to start disclosing as per TCFD recommendations. So by end of this workshop, what we can expect is that you will be able to know what are the potential impacts of climate change. Then what is the importance of climate related financial disclosures. Afterwards, you will also able to understand that why TCFD was set up and who is expected to disclose and where they are expected to disclose. You will be also able to understand that which are the key elements of climate related financial risk and which are the good practices and what initial steps an organization needs to take to start disclosing as per Pcfd recommendations. So coming to this section, climate change and financial stability. So in this, we are going to have a brief look at climate change and how it poses a financial risk to the financial system as well as to the individual companies. So this diagram has been taken from IPCC 6th assessment report. IPCC stands for Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So this is the highest governing body, scientific body, and 6th assessment report is the latest report. So here, what they have told in IPCC is that at present the carbon dioxide in our atmosphere is about 400 parts per million. And this is an increase of over 50% when it comes to comparing it with pre-industrial levels. And this has resulted in an increase of 1.2 degrees Celsius warm Earth compared to mid of 19th century. So if we compare it with 1850, over a period of about 170 years, the Earth has increased by 1.2 degrees C. And this image shows that what will Earth look like at 1.5 degrees Celsius, at 2 degrees Celsius, and at 4 degrees Celsius. Also, in the last 4 decades have been warmest on the record, and out of last 10 years, last 9 years has been the highest on record. So these are few of the latest news items which are related to climate crisis. So the problem with climate change is that it is irreversible and it is going to impact across different natural systems. So be it biodiversity, be it marine ecosystem, or it may impact water supplies also. Food security is another thing which is getting impacted. Forest fires, heat stress, seasonality, then flooding of coastal regions. So the impact of climate change will be incomprehensible. So some of these news items will show you, and there are also latest news items which are not here, like heat waves in Europe, then flood in Pakistan. This image has been taken from CRO forum. So in this, we see that which are the different types of impact of climate change. So the impact has been divided into physical impact and then economic impact, and how those impact will look like under different scenarios like 2 degrees C, 4 degrees C. This diagram has been taken from 2017 recommendations of TCFD. So that is the final report in which this diagram is used everywhere for showing TCFD's recommendations. So in this, they have given the risk and opportunities related to climate risk. They have divided climate risk into two parts. First one is transition risk, another is physical risk, and then they have given the opportunities and how climate risk impacts financially to companies in terms of income statement and balance sheet. So when it comes to transition risk, it is related to changes in policy, technology, market in an effort to transition to a low carbon, greener economy. So these are the examples of transition risk: policy and legal, technology, market, and reputation. When it comes to physical risk, it is defined as physical impacts of climate change can impact businesses and cause disruptions through extreme weather events or by longer term disruptions caused by changing weather patterns, rising temperature, and sea levels. So again, physical risk is divided into two parts: acute and chronic. So acute is extreme weather events, and chronic is longer term weather, longer term disruptions. For example, changing weather pattern, rising temperature, or sea levels. So apart from risk, there are opportunities also which comes with the climate change, and those opportunities are related to savings in resource efficiency, then development of low emission goods and services, then there would be development of access to new markets and public sector initiatives, and over a period of time, organizations will develop resilience, which will help them in fighting climate change. So this is also considered as one of the opportunities of climate risk. And when it comes to financial impact, it can impact income statement as well as balance sheet. In terms of income statement, there would be impact through revenues and expenditure. And in terms of balance sheet, there would be impact through assets, liabilities, capital, and financing. Now we will move to the next section, which is an introduction to Tcft. So before introducing you to Tcft, so the question arises is that why do we require disclosure? So disclosure is required for better decision making because it will lead to more stable, resilient markets and less abrupt price movements will be there. Also, disclosures are very important for investors who need to consider the risk return profile of organizations exposed to climate risk. So what investors need is that they want relevant, comparable, consistent, and decision useful information about companies and their management of climate risk and opportunities. So with this background, TCFD was asked to develop voluntary recommendations for climate related financial disclosures, which would be useful in understanding material risk related to climate change. So TCFD came up with their recommendations in 2017. And these recommendations were formed by TCFD team, which comprised of private sectors, banks, insurance companies, asset managers, fund managers, rating agencies, and accounting and consultancy firms. When it comes to TCFD recommendations, so the first part is that these are voluntary recommendations. So it is up to the national jurisdiction to whether to adopt those recommendations or not. Then it applies across all sectors. So there are specific recommendations for certain sectors, but it applies across all. And the recommendations are divided into 4 core elements. The first element is called governance. Second is called strategy. Third is risk management. And fourth is metrics and targets. So under these 4 core elements, there are 11 recommended disclosures and additional guidance. And the most important thing about these recommendations is that these are not to be viewed in silos. So all these recommendations are interconnected and they have to be seen together, work together, so that a holistic picture of climate related risks are seen. Then coming to the section that how TCFD recommendations are structured. So there are recommended disclosures, okay, and then for that there are guidance for all sectors, and then there are supplementary guidance for certain sectors. This slide represents the main theme of TCFD recommendations. So again, this is divided into 4 core themes: governance, strategy, risk management, and matrices and targets. In terms of governance, there are 2 major themes. So first one is related to board and second is related to management. In terms of a strategy, organizations has to describe climate related risk and opportunities for their organization over short term, medium term and long term. And then they have to also analyze the impact of those risk and opportunities. And the third requirement is very big and which is new for most of the industries, and that is related to scenario analysis. So companies has to conduct scenario analysis considering minimum 2 scenarios, out of which one has to be 2 degrees C or lower scenarios. When it comes to risk management, so again there are 3 recommendations. So first one is related to identifying and assessing climate related risk. Then it requires companies to disclose that what is the process there in that organization to manage those risks. And the third requirement is related to how those risks are interacting with the other risks in that organization and how those risks are being managed. Then in terms of matrices and targets, companies has to disclose their targets. They have to also disclose their scope 1, 2, 3 emissions. So we will discuss each of these recommendations in detail in coming slides. Now comes who should disclose. So in terms of TCFD recommendations, they have divided their guidance into 2 parts. Specific guidance into 2 parts. First one is related to financial sector and second is related to non-financial sector. Okay, so for financial sector, again, banks, insurance, asset managers and asset owners are there. For non-financial also, they have written about energy, transport, materials, building, agriculture and forest. So these are the companies who have to disclose. Then it comes to where to disclose. So this part is very important because in terms of TCFD recommendations, what they want is that the disclosure has to be along with the financial filings. So whatever rigorous methods through which financial reporting has to go through, the same has to be applied for climate related disclosures also. So it has to appear in the mainstream annual report of the company. Now this is another slide which is related to International Sustainability Standards Board. This is no way connected to TCFD, but why I have put this slide is that this International Sustainability Standards Board was formed by IFRS, the governing body. So as we all know that IFRS standards are used for financial reporting. So International Sustainability Standard Board, ISSB, will be developing standards for sustainability reporting. So when the same organization is doing reporting for both financial and non-financial reporting, so then there would be alignment between both the reports. So there will not be any cherry picking by the company or any gray area. So if the same governing body is monitoring both financial and non-financial reports, so they will be able to identify the areas of overlap or areas of conflict, and they would be able to chalk out that. So just a few months back, their draft report has come, and we can expect the final reports by next year. So again, coming to key themes and topics. So why TCFD is a different lens altogether, as I told you in the beginning. So existing CSR reports used to report impact of corporates' action on environment, on land, on water, on soil, and on society as a whole. But in terms of TCFD recommendations, they have to analyze and assess the impact of climate on the organization, and they have to disclose under those 4 themes. So this is the basic difference, and that is why this slide is named as a different lens. So this shift we have to see every time whenever we are doing any reporting under TCFD. So we should not think about, or we should not report that how we are going to impact the climate, but we have to keep our thinking that how climate is going to impact us. In terms of alignment versus risk, we have seen that recently a lot of companies have started disclosing that they want to align their target with Paris Agreement, and they want to reduce the global warming by 1.5 degrees Celsius. So that is all fine. But what remains there is that even if they align their target to 1.5 degrees Celsius or 2 degrees Celsius, but in that case also there would be impact of climate change on those companies, and companies has to be prepared for that. So even if a company has started reducing their own carbon footprint, or they have aligned their operations with their nationally determined contributions, as in India we have done in COP26. But in that case also, there always remains risk to that company, and company has to be prepared for that. Then forward-looking information is one of the main contributions from TCFD. So in terms of forward-looking information, they expect that companies should conduct scenario analysis. So scenario analysis is a tool which is used to inform a critical strategic thinking. So in order to stress test the climate resilience of an organization's strategy, TCFD asks the organization, or it expects the organization to consider different climate pathways. And one of them should be 2 degrees C or lower, and another as per their choice. And based upon those scenario analysis, organizations can formulate their mitigative and adaptive measures so that they remain prepared for a different range of climate futures. So what are climate scenarios? So to consider climate scenarios based upon different warming trajectories and the risk associated with them. So TCFD recommends that, as I told you, there should be at least 2 plausible scenarios, and they have to compare different outcomes, which has to be prepared using different severities of risk. Then the level of risk will depend upon the pathway or the scenario which is chosen. So it is important to remember here that there will always be degree of uncertainty in terms of climate risk related preparedness. So companies has to have some horizon, and based upon that, they have to document their assumptions, and based upon that, they have to conduct the scenario. They have to identify what is the result of that. It has to be analyzed at board level, and it has to be disclosed in terms of their TCFD recommended disclosures. So in terms of scenario assumption, organizations make about future climate trajectories is very crucial when completing scenario analysis. So when it comes to lower warming scenarios, for example, 1.5 degree scenario, so in that case, transition risk would be very high, because there would be significant changes in the energy mix and associated infrastructure, as well as there would be progressive green regulation and legalization, which will require organizations to move very fast. So when it comes to 1.5 degrees Celsius scenario, in that case, it will be a very sudden policy change, and there would be a lot of transition risk for that. And in those cases, physical risk also will be there, but not very severe or not very frequent. But if you go for business as usual scenario, where there are no major policy changes, or there are no abrupt legal changes, in that case, warming would be higher on a longer term horizon. And in that case, the frequency and severity at that horizon, say 30 years down the line, would be very high. So whatever assumptions which are there will differ depending on the time horizon, and organizations should ensure that that scientific understanding is there for those assumptions and has been used for that analysis. So when it comes to completing a scenario analysis, organizations should first start with the qualitative narratives. So TCFD also does not expect that organizations will start with quantitative analysis and will come out with some models. So it has to be some qualitative scenarios first. And then it will be an iterative process, and afterwards they can use the models and data in that. In next section, we will see the TCFD recommendations, each of those 11 recommendations which we have seen earlier, and we will also see some of the examples of good practices. These good practices has been compiled by TCFD themselves from different organizations across the world, and they have created a book for those good practices, so which is available on their website also. So when it comes to governance, so in terms of governance, there should be board's oversight and management's role in assessing and managing climate-related risk and opportunities. So there are two recommended disclosures that distinctly differentiate between the board and senior management. So this disclosure or this recommendation talks about the role of management, what should be the organizational structure, and what should be the process there by which organization is informed. So there can be a board level subcommittee. So different organizations have different name for that subcommittee. There can be some committee at their head office level. There can be subcommittee at regional levels. So different organizations have got different structures. So it talks about that structure has to be in place, and in that role of board has to be defined, and then role of senior manager also has to be defined, and how this reporting structure is working in that organization, that is also to be defined. So this is a best practice example which has been given from Total Energies. So it was formerly known as Total. It is a French multinational firm. So what they have given is that they have given a short summary of board oversight on climate-related issues. They have also given summary of how board approves and monitors the group climate strategy and GHG emission reduction targets on an annual basis. The peculiar part here is that they have given how climate-related metrics and criteria is included in the variable portion of senior leadership's compensation. So once compensation is tied with the variable component payment of senior management, then in that case, the ESG rating of that organization improves a lot. So this is one of the major criteria which is used by ESG rating agencies in terms of weightage. So whenever variable component is linked to some target related to ESG, so in that case, ESG rating of that organization will improve. Then this example is related to Swiss Re. And here they describe the board's oversight of climate-related risks and opportunities, and also describe management's role in assessing and managing them. They have got a group risk management concept, so they define that role of their group risk management concept. And then this diagram gives organizational diagram. This depicts Swiss Re's sustainability and climate-related governance structure. So this includes relevant board committees and group functions. So depending upon the type of organization, these structures will differ. But overall, each organization has to define their structure, define the roles and responsibility, define the reporting system, and then that has to be disclosed. Then comes the second theme of TCFD recommendations, which is related to strategy. So here again, the basic difference between the existing mindset related to climate change and the TCFD expectation is that companies should not talk about their strategy for climate change. Companies should talk about that how they are going to be impacted by climate change and what is their strategy for them. So this is the basic difference here. So it recommends that organizations' climate strategy should be about how climate-related risks and opportunities are likely to impact the organization-wide business strategy. And then those risks and opportunities should be identified for short term, medium term, and long term. It may have impacts on that organization's product as well as services. It will also impact its supply or value chain. Then it will also impact its investments as well as research and development and operations. So companies should focus on the resilience of organization's strategy and ask to consider different climate related scenarios by conducting scenario analysis. So this is the third recommendation under strategy. So all companies have to conduct scenario analysis. So again, as we have seen earlier, it has to be a forward looking exercise. There should be minimum 2 scenarios. One scenario should be of 2 degrees C or lower, and another as per their choice. So here for good practices, they have given example of Mercury. So Mercury is a firm related to energy, and they have identified their different risks, and for each risk they have identified that what is its likelihood, what is its impact, and what is the period for that, and what is the financial implication of that, and what is the methodology they have used. And here beautiful part is that along with risk, they have also identified the opportunities. The next example is related to Tech Mahindra. This is an Indian conglomerate. They have conducted scenario analysis, and one of the scenarios is related to global temperature increase of 2 degrees C, and the second scenario is related to global temperature of 4 degrees C. And they have used time horizon of 30 years time scale for both the scenarios. And what they have used is that they have taken variable as carbon price, which can range between $14 to $700 per ton. And based upon that, they have identified the potential changes on their portfolio. Also, they have identified different weather patterns within Indian subcontinent, and based upon that, they have identified impact on their organization and their organization's preparedness for those scenarios. Then comes the next recommendation, which is related to risk management. So here we have to identify the processes which are there for identification and assessment. First one is identification and assessment. Second is process which is there in the company for managing those climate related risks. And third is that how it is integrated into organization's overall risk management process. So it will tell investor about that how a company's risk management is linked to its business strategy and financial planning, and they will be able to appropriately evaluate the impact of climate related risk on that company. This Banco de Venda is a Colombian bank. So this has been used by Tcfd as one of the best practices. So this organization identifies and assesses climate related risks in context of assessing their investment decisions, and in particular when they are taking loan applications. This bank has uniquely done a pilot test to specifically identify the physical risk on their mortgage loan portfolio and identified regulations which can impact their high emitting industries across their portfolio. And they have also got one tool which is known as SARAS, which they are using for managing their climate risk. Another example which Tcfd has quoted is AstraZeneca. So what they have done is that they have identified climate related risk and opportunities, and they have described the potential impact of risk which is specific to their business and location of their operations. So from their analysis, they have identified 8 sites where there could be significant physical risk in next 10 years. Then for those 8 sites, they have increased the local site and business continuity plan proactively so that they manage physical climate risk well. Then this is the last theme of Tcfd recommendation, metrics and targets. So climate organizations should disclose the metrics used in assessing climate-related risk and opportunities. And those metrics and targets has to be integrated with the strategy and risk management processes. So as we saw in the earlier slide, that in climate risk, whatever TCFD has recommended 4 themes, so those should not be seen in silos. So whatever metrics and targets which comes here, those has to be in line with the strategy and risk management processes. And again, those has to be formulated at has to be discussed at senior management level, and those should be approved at board level. So again, those 4 themes which we have seen earlier, those has to be worked in an integrated manner. Then organizations should also disclose scope 1, 2, 3 greenhouse emissions in absolute terms with data from previous years to determine performance and emission trajectories. So what is expected is that the companies should describe the targets which are used to monitor and manage. Then it should also include interim milestones to assess how much progress they have done. And then there should be a baseline to compare what performance has been achieved. And again, these targets has to be science-based. So for that, there is another standard called Science-Based Target Initiative. So they have given their methodology for that. So these targets has to be science-based. And in terms of example, they have given AXA. So it is a French multinational insurance firm. So they have given their emission data into scope 1, 2, and 3. If you can see the table, along with its business activity also they have given. Then they have given 2 years prior data so that any investor can compare that how much improvement or what is the performance of this organization as compared to the previous years. Then Landsec is another best practices example, which is there as per TCFD. So it is UK's largest commercial property and development investment company. So Landsec has disclosed their capital expenditure in low carbon equipment and products, as well as their avoided energy consumption costs along with other disclosures. So again, these matrices and targets will differ depending upon the sector or industry to which this company belongs. So only that second part, which is related to scope 1, 2, 3, will be applicable for all. But others will differ from sector to sector. But again, among those sectors, there has to be some comparability. So for that, ISSB has given in their draft report, each sector wise, which are the factors which can be used by the companies for metrics and targets. So those factors and targets has been adopted by ISSB from SASB. So SASB has got a practice of identifying the industry, and for each industry they have classified they have identified the factors which can be used for disclosure. So they have given those standards for 77 industries. So those has been almost re-adopted by ISSB. So once those final guidelines come, so those can be used as a reference point by companies for using metrics and targets. Now in the next section, we will see the practical next steps. So for TCFD recommendations, we have to understand that it is an iterative process and it has to happen in phased manner only. So any organization has to first lay the groundwork and then has to start working on that. So when it comes to TCFD's expectation, initially what they have, as per their discussion, they have told is that it will take another 5 years for the organizations to adopt their TCFD recommendations. So in 2017 that report came. So by 2022 it should have been adopted. So there were certain delays in certain jurisdictions. So those jurisdictions where it has already passed 3-4 years, so there is a relevant amount of maturity there. But in some jurisdictions where it has just started, so they are at nascent stage, and in some jurisdictions like us, it is yet to start. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. So this example is from Commonwealth of Australia, Commonwealth Bank of Australia. So what they have done is that they have given their plan in their annual report, and what are the activities of their plan which they have achieved, and what is the action items for them in future, and what are the points which they have missed, and what is the reason for that, and how they plan to achieve that. So they have brought total transparency in their Tcfd implementation plan, and they have given in their annual report. So the first step for any organization would be to create an implementation roadmap. So for creating an implementation roadmap, any organization has to first create some timeline for that. And in that roadmap, there would be the starting point would be to create an internal working group. That internal working group should consist of people from all verticals. So it can be from risk management, it can be from strategy, it can be from compliance, then operations. So depending upon the type of organization, those verticals can be taken. Then the first step would be to conduct a gap analysis, that what are the Tcfd recommendations, and against that, what is there in the organization at present. So once they get that gap analysis done, then they can identify that what are the action points for them, and then they can identify the timeline for those action points, and they can start disclosing as per Tcfd recommendations. Then the third step would be conducting scenario analysis. So they can start with qualitative scenarios first, and they can again move to quantitative scenarios. So this is how Tcfd team can be created. There are again two approaches here. So many organizations, what they do is that at board level, they have someone who is very well conversant with sustainability related requirements. So as a board member level, they appoint that person. He acts as climate champion, and then he guides that organization. Okay, so that is one approach. That at board level there would be climate champion. So he or she would be the main person who would be driving that climate related change in that organization. Another approach is that to create a functional team, a cross-functional team consisting of people from sustainability, risk management, finance, internal audit, strategy, investor relations, and then use that team to identify the requirements and work according to that. So both of them work, and in some organizations they use the approach of they use hybrid of both the models. So they have got climate champion at board level also, and from their internal team also they create a core working group, and that working group works on Tcfd implementation. So these are the various elements of climate governance. So which has to be there. So there has to be a proper board structure. Then they have to start with the materiality assessment. Then reporting and disclosure should be there. There has to be some incentivization for reporting and disclosures. Then it has to be integrated into the strategy. There has to be some climate accountability. So again, when it comes to climate accountability, then performance linked to ESG related parameters as a part of KRS key responsibility areas is one thing which is being introduced in many organizations. And there has to be exchange of ideas between different verticals. So this slide talks about general risk management. So here what it wants to say is that transition risk and physical risk should not be seen as a standalone. So they are integrated with other traditional types of risk like credit risk, market risk, strategic risk, and operational risk. So these act as multiplier to other risks. So in terms of physical risk or in terms of transition risk, so when they increases, so for example, if because of transition risk, there are corporates which default for a bank. So in that case, credit risk will increase. And in terms of physical risk, if there is increased cases of floods, so that in that case, operational risk will increase. So these risks should not be seen as separate, but this has to be seen with the other traditional risks. So till now, this is the last section of this slide. So till now, we will take a recap of what we have seen. So there are TCFD recommendation has come up in 2017. So the basic difference between TCFD recommendation and traditional CSR reports and sustainability reports is that in traditional ways we were seeing the impact of climate, impact of companies' operations on climate or environment. But in TCFD recommendations, we have to assess the impact of climate change on the organization, and we have to see the preparedness for that. Then TCFD recommendations are divided into 4 core themes. First one is related to governance. Second is strategy. Third is risk management, and fourth is metrics and targets. So these has to be seen in totality. This has to be seen in an integrated manner. This should not be seen as silos. Okay, and when it comes to governance, there are 2 main areas there. One is related to board, and second is related to senior management. There has to be clear differentiation between them, and roles and responsibility has to be defined at each level. In terms of strategy, organizations have to identify the risk and opportunities. They have to assess the impact, and they have to conduct scenario analysis. When it comes to risk management, organizations need to identify and assess, and then they have to also disclose that what is the process to manage those risks. And third requirement is that how those risks are integrated into that organization's traditional risk management system. Then in terms of metrics and target, again, organizations need to identify the metrics and targets which has to be integrated with their strategy, and they have to disclose their scope 1, 2, 3 emissions. So this is how TCFD recommendations are structured. And to start working on these recommendations, organizations would start with first creating a team. So this team can be cross-functional. They have to do a gap analysis, and then as for their gap analysis, they will understand that which are the steps they can do first, and then they can create milestone for those gaps, and they have to start working on that. Once some level of maturity comes, then they can start working on scenario analysis also. With those scenario analysis, it is not expected that they will come up with the quantitative models first. So afterwards, when they gain experience, they can use quantitative models also. And this entire process has to be documented, and this reporting has to be disclosed along with their annual reports. So this is overall how TCFD recommendations work. So I think whatever objectives we have taken in the beginning, so all those have been achieved. So there are a lot of resources which are available related to TCFD. It is there on TCFD website also. It is there on CDSB website also, Climate Disclosure Standards Board. Now CDSB, CDP has been and SASB has been merged with ISSB. So you can get a lot of material there. And there is a site called TCFD Hub. So there also you can get this material. In fact, this presentation deck has been adapted from a CDSP site. So they have given a deck, presentation deck which can be used by any of the TCFD practitioners free of cost. And for seeing the recommendations, you can go to TCFD main website also, and there you can get industry-wise recommendations also. Yes, sir. So that's from my side.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Before going to Q&A round, I would like to request everybody who has connected to us for the first time, joined our webinar for the first time, to drop their emails and connect to us via our email ID or our LinkedIn page, so that they can become a member, become a volunteer, or conduct this session in the future. Okay, so you can go ahead with your questions by unmuting yourself.
Okay, so
there is one question in, I think, query in chat box.
Yeah.
Kashyap.
Yeah, okay. So I think Praveen Jadhav has asked any view on any view on major impacts of RBI's climate risk discussion paper on Indian banks, like major changes in reporting and practices?
Yes, so till now, from SEBI side, there has been a requirement that banks should or organizations, top 1,000 listed companies should disclose from FY 22-23 as per their BRSR report. So business responsibility and sustainability report. So this format has been given by TCFD. So from FY 22-23, that report was mandatory. But in their discussion paper, RBI has told that banks should follow Tcfd recommendations. So this is a major change which is there from the SEBI's stand. So bank will continue to disclose as per BRSR from FY 22-23, but banks will have to adopt to Pcfd recommendations also. So that reporting will start for banks also.
Okay, we have one more question. Would a voluntary TCFD paid for by the borrower follow the path of paying for credit rating? This could lead to similar challenges like 2008 meltdown. It will be ineffective. So it's a kind of question as well as some comment. Would you like to go ahead with, sir?
Would a voluntary TCFD paid for?
If I may ask that question straight away.
Yeah,
so
Siddharth,
my view is like this. So this is a voluntary thing. And as far as it's not being made mandatory by the banks, it's like a corporate trying to get itself ranked in terms of its exposure or business exposure due to climate impact. Now, because this is voluntary, there is a chance that it will be as corrupted as the credit rating that happened that led to the 2008 meltdown. So my question is, I'm asking your views on it. So what do you think? If it's going to be a voluntary TCFD, it will be ineffective and fail to achieve its objectives. I want your views on it, please, if you could kindly.
So here, even if it is voluntary or mandatory, so it doesn't matter. So ultimately, there are many organizations who take help of consultants to prepare their TCFD. So there is no denying that fact. But even if someone takes that help and is trying to disclose that what is their emission level, what is their strategy, what scenarios they have done. So it is up to investors that they can filter out that whether that company is bluffing or not. And also there are now standards which are coming up that whatever data which goes into TCFD reporting, so companies get validated that. So it's not that it is just some numbers which companies have thrown to investors and investors will accept that. And when it comes to this proposed ISSB guidelines, so those would be integrated with financial reporting. So this non-financial reporting related to sustainability will be integrated with financial reporting. So whatever rigor through which that financial reporting is going through, same would be applied to this. So there may be some exaggeration by companies, but but investors are smart enough to identify that those anomalies, and over a period of time, those standards will also develop. So it will not lead to total meltdown like 2008, but it's also clear that many organizations, in fact, many big organizations appoint very big consultants like Oliver Wyman to help them prepare for climate risk.
Thank you for that answer.
So there is one question from Zambia. So appears to be lack of strict regulations on climate risk from the authorities. Is there a way of sensitizing the CR to the authorities to win a ton from the top? So till now, the regulation is related to TCFD, which we are talking about. So Taskforce on climate-related financial disclosures. But right now there is also a disclosure requirement which is under discussion stage, at draft stage, that is related to TNFD, Task Force on Nature-related Financial Disclosures. So how companies are impacting the nature and how nature is impacting the companies. So that is still in draft stage. For countries like Zambia, which are very rich in natural resources, so once those disclosures come up, so then all three disclosures, for example, financial reporting related disclosures, which has come from IFRS, then non-financial related disclosures, which has come from which will come from ISSB and TCFD, and TNFD related disclosures, those will be integrated.
Okay, I believe Peter's question has been answered. We will take the last question and one comment. Okay. Nilanjana has asked, what are the prevalent data sources for getting emission information? BRSR may indicate data pertaining to top 1,000, but what about others?
So I think in this case, the person who is asking the question is going to be disappointed because BRSR is also asking about the data related to top 1,000 companies, but there is no compulsion on them to disclose those data. So I have seen BRSR report of many firms. So they simply write not applicable for that for the data points also which is applicable to them. So in my view, BRSR is not going to be to prove useful for any of the analyst or investor when it comes to analyzing climate related data. So this format will be there, which will be there available on their website. But whenever it comes to certain critical data points which can be used for analysis of that industry or for that company, so many times either it will remain blank or in that case it will not be audited. So unless we adopt certain international standards like GRI or ISSB, then only this problem would be solved. Otherwise, BRSR will not be of any use.
Okay. So, Deepak sir, I had done a project, I and Siddharth, who is also present in this meeting. So we use the data of CDP, Climate Disclosure Project. So we used the data of BSE Top 200. So CDP India report. So would it mean similar report, similar, the information disclosure would be available for other countries also? I believe so. Isn't it?
It is available at Bloomberg for other countries, other listed companies also. It is available at Bloomberg. But again, for example, for companies in India, so whatever data which comes, so that is not authenticated figures. So unless some standards come that those has to be audited or verified, so that data will not be of that use.
Okay. And last comment we would like to take from you. Prabhakar sir, who is a very senior attendee from last 2-3 sessions, he has been attending our sessions. So if one is interested to undertake research in the area of risk management, particularly related to impact of climate change, climate risk, developing a model to mitigate climate risk in banks in India, what are the areas of investigation? And if the topic falls within the area of risk management in banks, whether we will be able to get data for the project. So it's a similar question, I believe so.
So when it comes to India, so unfortunately there is not much data available. Okay, but if someone is very much interested in doing some project, they can go to IIAS. So that is one site on which different models are hosted, or they can go to World Energy Outlook, which is a model of International Energy Agency (IEA). So on that also a lot of data related to energy and other industries are hosted on that. So those can be used. And if he is interested, he can go to IPCC site also. So they have also got a lot of data. So in 6th assessment report also, they have got a lot of data related to India. But when it comes to project specific data, so that data may not be available for India. When it comes to the flood intensity level, so that data is unfortunately available at district level in India. But when it comes to UK, the same data is available at a dimension of 5 by 5 meter square. So in terms of data availability, there will be a lot of challenges in India. But again, at high level, industry level, they can get data from different sources. For example, I told World Energy Outlook, IEA website, IIAS has got different models for that. IPCC also they can go. NGFS also has hosted some data, Network for Greening Financial Systems.
Okay, sir.
So
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
So to get any data, they have to identify that which are the organizations which are helping the academic world as well as the industrial world in conducting scenario analysis. So those organizations have hosted many data points related to that, so they can follow those.
Okay. Deepak sir, just one query. You told that district level data are available regarding flood and those things. So these are the physical risks. So are such data on state level or district level available for the transition risk? Is it available somewhere?
No, so when it comes to transition risk, it is not at the state level or district level. It is industry level. So transition risk for coal would be different. For renewable energy would be different. For automobiles will be different. So it comes to industry level, and that data you can get from IEA website, International Energy Agency website. So they have got a model which has got 800 different technologies which they use to model future energy prices. So they use 800 different technologies in that.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. It was a great session, and I would like to request Bovili Naidu to give a vote of thanks.
Hello, namaste. On behalf of all the participants and CRFC team, I am glad and would like to thank Mr. Deepak Kumar sir, who is a senior banker from UBI with rich experience over a decade in risk management, for sharing his valuable thoughts. Actually, I especially like Mr. Deepak Kumar speaks for deep insights on climate change and financial stability disclosure. He has given entire picture and the introduction of TCFD and its topics, what are all the different climate scenarios and scenario assumptions, with means how the financial institutions or banks are publishing the data in their annual report, and he has given rich his experience, and the way Mr. Kumar explained the topic is very exemplary. Of course, it will help us to simplify the TCFD understanding to all the participants, and further we are looking for your association in the future as well. Once again, thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable session.
Thank you so much, Deepak sir, and it's a great honor that being a junior of your college, because I am just 2022 pass out. So I think you are our super senior. It's a really great honor to host our super seniors. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
And Deepak Kumar sir, I'm following you on this one, LinkedIn. You are posting so many posts related to climate risk.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes.